All right, welcome to the show. My name is Stephen D. Kelly. I am your host of the Stephen D. Kelly Show, and this is Truth Cat Radio, www.truthcatradio.com. Today is May 2nd. Not May Day, but May 2nd at 6 p.m. I don't have a title for the show, but before I give you anything, I'm just going to harass all the people, the TikTok mentalities that basically will leave within the first 4 minutes because they just, lose attention. So anyway, tonight is kind of an important show because we are at war, and you really should know these things. And I think everything that we talk about from this point on is going to be pretty serious. Not a joke. It's not for entertainment. And there is a lot of learning that needs to be done. And instructions. Marching orders, if you will. But the thing I want to lead off with, I think that's important to remember because I think it's a very significant event, and that is the fact that today, May 2nd, 2024, 10 years ago today, was the Maidan massacre in Odessa, Ukraine, soon to be Russia. And this was when the protest and the Nazi uprising that was basically financed by $5 billion that the United States gave to those NGOs and various criminal organizations that fostered this, that overthrew the democratically elected government, love it or not, over there in that country. Democratically elected, overthrown in a coup, a Nazi coup, complete with Sieg Heil and Nazi banners and everything else, except that they had Jewish leadership, which I think is really the key here that we're going to be focusing on. Anyway, they were very anti-Russian. They were very anti-anybody, well, let's just say socialist per se, Russian speakers. But they, on this day, 10 years ago, they chased a bunch of their, Russian types into a building, a labor hall, and they lit it on fire and killed anybody that tried to get away. Anyway, so that happened. And of course, this is something that nobody has ever been punished for, of course. But when this did happen, there were lots of photos of young girls and teens, young adults in the streets pulling up paving stones and taking old liquor bottles or whatever they could find and filling it up with gasoline and making Molotov cocktails, which of course were used on these people taking refuge inside of this building. This was Nazism on full display, but yet at this time, the United States wasn't officially involved, wasn't officially supporting it, and everyone said everything was okay. I believe this might have even been while Trump was in office, but remember when he was doing this, well, I think it's probably after, but he said everything was normal. Nothing changed. Now, I want to focus on what's going on in the United States, of course. We're having our own Maidan. We're seeing the unrest, of course, on the the universities, very reminiscent. Now, I'm old enough to remember the 60s and the Vietnam War. Seriously, guys. I remember this. And I have to say that things are certainly different. Now, of course, we've seen BLM unrest. We've seen massive amounts of people crossing over the border with no restriction whatsoever. We've seen the government bend over backwards to allow for unlawful behavior. The rush to make these illegal aliens citizens and give them free rights, including access to tax monies. Obviously, something's wrong. Now, of course, Israel, what they're calling Israel, of course, is fucked. And I'll tell you, the focus of this thing tonight that we're going to be talking about is really going to be revolving around these people that are claiming this ancestry. Last show, I talked all about the Phoenicians, and I talked about the kings of Israel in the north, and I think that was a pretty important show because I think I've identified a lot of diversions. For one thing, It's not the Jews. It's not the Khazars. It's not the Semites. Well, it is the Semites, only it's not Jewish Semites. It's Phoenician Semites. The Phoenician Empire was much larger than the kingdom of David or the kingdom of Solomon, even with Solomon's magic tricks and demons in tow. It was much larger. It wasn't defeated really until the time of the Romans, when Hannibal and all that with Carthage was destroyed. They sowed salt. The Romans sowed salt into the grounds, the fields of Carthage, so that it would never rise up again. I always wondered, what was the problem with Carthage? Poor Carthage, they sowed salt, they put salt in the ground so they couldn't grow food to make sure Carthage would never rise up again. It must have been a horrible place. Why would they do that? I mean, either that or the Romans are horrible. Well, it turns out, right in the middle of town, they had this big Tophet altar thing that they used to kill babies on for their human sacrifice that they did as part of their religion. Now, of course, their god was Melkart. And, here's the other thing. Everybody talks about Moloch, but they don't talk about Melkart. Why is that? Well, let me think. You got the Babylonians, who took the southern part of Egypt, which only was 2 tribes, where Jerusalem was. And then you've got the Assyrians that took the top 10 tribes, which contained all the satanic shit going on. How come we only talk about Babylon? How come we only talk about Moloch and the 2 tribes? I think those tribes were Benjamin and David, I believe. All the other tribes that went north, nobody likes to talk about that. All those kings that all offered up their children in human sacrifice. Now, you think, wow, how could you do that? Well, you got to remember these kings had like 20-something wives who were probably spitting out babies. They didn't think a whole lot about silencing a couple of them, passing them through the fires to Moloch or Melkart or whoever. Now, to me, this kind of behavior would make you want to destroy that society that does that sort of thing. It's not going to go away. And this is why they went to so great a length to try to destroy Carthage and the people, who were Phoenicians. They weren't Carthaginians, they were Phoenicians. Sure, that's like saying people in Los Angeles are Angelinos. Yes, people of Carthage were Carthaginians, but they were Phoenician, of the Phoenician Empire. Why is this important? Because just like they're hiding Melkart behind Moloch, they're hiding Phoenicians behind Jews. So when they use these anti-Semitism crap, you got to remember the Semites are the Phoenicians. They're the oldest base root culture that you could call Semites. So all this bad-mouthing Semites is not Jews, it's Phoenicians. And why? Because of their continued killing of babies. Now, before I get to the Getty stuff, I have to talk about the current things. But let's put it this way. Let's see. First of all, we'll talk about Israel. We'll talk about Netanyahu. The International Criminal Court, the same court that basically said that Putin was a war criminal. The United States loved it when that happened. Of course, the United States isn't even a signer to the International Criminal Court. They don't really recognize it. They think they're above it. But that organization has a lot of credibility. Well, they put out, what they say, they basically said that Netanyahu and 2 of his ministers, the Minister of Defense, Gant, and this other guy, were war criminals. I don't think they've actually completed that process, but it's in the process. They say it's going to happen. And Israel basically said a couple things. First of all, the United States said that they would go against this and they would punish the International Criminal Court. Now, that's amazing, right? Punishing a court for calling out something that's absolutely true. But Israel, what they said that they're going to destroy the Palestinian Authority, the so-called government of whatever it is left in Israel or Gaza. They're going to destroy that, wherever it may be. Now, this is kind of like bombing an embassy. You're not negotiating. You're absolutely, I don't need to go show you where this is going to go, but the world doesn't like it. Now, what's going on here in the U.S.? Two things very significant. One just happened was the law that basically illegalized anti-Semitism. Whatever, they have all kinds of these things in various different places and books in the country, but now it's become a serious problem. Where does that come from? Of course, that comes because our government is owned by AIPAC. We'll talk about AIPAC, but what's the other big thing that these guys are pushing through right now? They're pushing through a rule right now that will basically make it criminal to go against the official narrative of 9/11. Now, accordingly, supposedly, this is because of the memory of those that died on 9/11. You know, not the million Iraqis, but the 3,000 Americans, etc., that were in the building, except, of course, for what's his name, that idiot that made all those billions of dollars. Good thing I can't remember his name. Larry Silverstein, that guy. Well, that's going to be, what is it? I get them mixed up. I think it's a $10,000 fine and 5 years in jail if they bust you for this. Now, obviously, who's not guilty of that, right? But they're going to have that law in the book. Now, again, why would they have laws on the book like this? Because of AIPAC, because of the ADL, these organizations, these so-called Jewish organizations, Protection Israel Jewish, that are doing this, causing this to happen. How could they do that? Because they spend tons and tons and tons of money on Congress and buying their control. Now, just a few months ago, they basically said that they were going to go crazy with their spending and saturate our government with money, going to people that would, of course, well, let's just say be sympathetic to their policy. Now, that may not sound like, how bad could that be? You think, well, they're going to take that money, but what are they really going to do? They're going to vote. They're going to do stuff favor. They're going to give Israel money. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. They're going to do a lot more than that. They're going to take away your rights and destroy our country in support of Israel to protect them from us. So that's why now they're going to use excessive force to remove the students from these various universities. No longer will they tolerate it. I mean, not since Vietnam have we seen something like this that's going on. Of course, I remember Kent State, all that fun stuff. I know a lot of you probably have no clue what Kent State is, but this is getting real. Now, here's the thing that's significant about the Maidan movement and what's going on right now, and that is that not only were the leadership of Ukraine, or the so-called Nazi movement that was taking over the country, was that primarily Jewish people leading a bunch of actual Nazis, but they also had quite a bit of involvement from agents of Mossad and that sort of thing, terrorists, agents of Israel who were actually terrorists. Now, these agents would get up on these buildings with rifles and they would shoot police as well as protesters. They'd shoot people on both sides. Now, of course, this strategy infuriates people and it causes violence and things to get out of control, and this causes countries to fall. They did the same strategy in Iraq, in Fallujah, and places like this, where they wanted to basically cause enough problems with the locals and the occupying forces that the occupying forces would be obliged to slaughter the locals, which, of course, is what these people want. Now, if you see what's going on in the campuses, of course, UCLA is very close to me and also very close to the Getty and also connected to the Getty and also being used for collecting adrenochrome. Those students over there, apparently some of them decided that they wanted to break some windows or something of this nature. And of course, this was called violence by the authorities. And then on top of that, last night and probably tonight, we're going to have armed clashes between the protesters that are occupying this space on the campus and Jewish gangs, believe it or not. Yeah, Jewish gangs. Now, Westwood, this part of LA where UCLA is located, is extremely Jewish. There's lots of Jewish. Of course, there's lots of Jews. But anyway, they've gathered up their forces, and I'm sure they've got plenty of useful idiots accompanying them, but they are assaulting violently these people and these things. This is why they've barricaded themselves behind, plywood, because the shit that these guys outside, the Jewish people, are throwing. So basically, the Jews, and during the daylight, they'll be dancing around with the flag of Israel, but at nighttime, they'll show up in their hoodies and they'll use weapons, pipes, blunt objects to attack and harass these people in this encampment. Now, of course, the media is all behind this because they say these are not pro-Palestinian protesters. These are pro-Hamas protesters. They're terrorists. They're promoting a terror. They're not protesting the genocide going on in the Palestinian territory by Israel. No, they're trying to support the terrorists. Now, obviously, this illustrates the fact that our media is completely controlled by the enemy. Now we know that the police forces are also controlled by the enemy. So here we have Biden. I'm not saying Trump's any better because Trump says, end the protests now. Kind of like he tells Netanyahu, end the war now. Not ceasefire, but kill them all as quickly as possible, get it over with. Same thing Biden wants. Now, Biden basically came out today and said that the protesters are not peaceful, that we have long history of peaceful protest. But he says, no, these guys are not being peaceful. They're fighting and they're breaking property and they are not peaceful. They are terrorists, et cetera, et cetera. So Biden's basically washing his hands of it and saying that it's okay that these people talking shit about Israel, that basically calling on Israel to stop its genocide, are somehow violent, when it's actually the Maidan-esque style Jewish attackers that are causing the violence that these people are getting riled up over. Here in the UCLA, they're using the LAPD to surround the protesters. They're using the California Highway Patrol to basically enter the encampment and beat the hell out of everybody and drag them out. And they're using the sheriff's department to incarcerate everybody. So that's three big agencies, huge state agencies that they're mobilizing to deal with just one campus. Hundreds of people are going to be arrested, of course. Now here's the thing. Repeat this hundreds of times across the country in all these various universities. I mean, I don't care what you say about Harvard or Columbia or whatever. We know what they are. We know what they usually do. We know what their faculty is. We know who pays their bills. But at the same time, the students are not completely indoctrinated. Sure, one day they may be all about the what gender are you and all that nonsense, but right now they are over the genocide, and it's very clear, and they want to stop. And you can't turn them into criminals, and you can't beat them, because this is something we learned in the 60s. That shit doesn't work. You can't take your best and your brightest, supposedly, this is what they are, a whole generation, and attack them and put them in jail. What the fuck do you think is going to happen? They're going to get a little radical, and not only that, it's completely destroying our system. These are the people that we need. I don't think they're looking too far ahead into the future, because obviously if they were, they would realize that this is how countries die. These are the first steps of a country that's dying. Why does this country have to die? Well, unfortunately, this country is the muscles behind this enemy. Now, Ukraine, of course, is a very important territory to these enemy types. You already know who they are. And Ukraine is getting ready to fall. I know I've been saying this for a while, but the front line is breaking in several places. There are gaps in the front line that are not being filled. The Russians are taking more and more territory faster and faster every day, and they have not even called in their 300,000 man trained rear reserves. They're standing by waiting for orders to begin the actual offensive. This is still not even an actual offensive, and it's almost over. It doesn't matter how many billions that they give these people. It doesn't matter. For that matter, most of the weapons that were actually paid for by the 60 whatever billion it was that they got have already been destroyed. It's ludicrous. So that's dying. And the same thing with Israel. Israel is never going to be able to repair this, and all they can do is try to lure us into a, let's just say, suicidal endeavor in protecting them, which is exactly what they're going to do because they've taken so much money and spent so much of our money and spent it on our government. Well, so my attitude right now is pretty angry because I understand that a lot of what's happening on the world scale here, the broad picture, is exactly directly related to the Occupy the Getty mission, because the closer we get, the worse this is going to get, not just from a distraction standpoint. But they've really exposed themselves. Now, I have to say that from the very beginning of my, let's just say, discovery process, what was going on with the enemy under the Getty, I knew from the day one that this had something to do with this, well, let's just say, Khazarian mafia, for lack of a better name at this point. And the protocols, of course, had a lot to do with that. But when before I even confronted them about this, I'm trying to think what happened first, Vince or the other guy? Yeah. Well, here's the thing. This is what I really wanted to tell you. When the remote viewer for the very first time, way back when, years ago, went down there, saw everything, saw the various tunnels, cruised down the tunnels to see where they went, the number one thing, first thing that was mentioned, was the Skirball Center. Now, bear in mind, I had never heard of the Skirball Center, and the person that was talking about it, of course, was in New York. Naturally, they also mentioned that it was hooked up to Edwards Air Force Base and, the island, Santa Catalina, as well as several prominent homes in the Hollywood area. But that was the exact description. So in other words, from day one, the Skirball Center was number 2 after the Getty in this horrible structure. And I never really said anything about it because of what it is. It's the largest Jewish cultural center in the United States. Now, the Getty, of course, I think, Occupy the Getty, it's an important mission because how can they defend this museum? How can they defend this private foundation connected to the continuity of government, the underground bunkers, as well as satanic human sacrifice and all the connection to Hollywood and everything else that comes with it? Well, you would think that would be the only thing that I would need to worry about, and that should be our number one target. Yes, it seemed like it for a long time, and I avoided even talking about the Skirball Center because I didn't want to offend the Jews. Now that I know they're not even Jews, it's the Phoenicians that are doing this shit. I hope that Jews that make you, if you don't identify as a Phoenician, then, Bottom line, though, is I don't care anymore. I couldn't even talk about the protocols. 12 years ago, when I first came out and started talking about this stuff, I didn't want to talk about the protocols. That was too inflammatory, too anti-Semitic. Here we are 12 years later, and they're making so-called anti-Semitic whatever illegal. Talking about 9/11, illegal. What are they going to do? Pretty soon they're going to say that talking about the Getty is illegal. It's somehow anti-Semitic. Is Occupy the Getty anti-Semitic? Fuck yes. It always has been. Why? Because the Semites are the Phoenicians that kill the babies. Now, here's the thing. These labels are all bullshit. Sorry. Who created these labels? Who uses these labels? Why is it so bad to call yourself an anti-Semite when all it means is that you're against human sacrifice? That's a label. It's like the damn rainbow being hijacked to represent the homosexuals. They don't own this. So the things are changing, the times are changing, and I really don't care that much anymore, because here's the thing. If you identify as this religion, or you identify as this race, if you will, this tribe, you're going to have to figure out which one it is. Now, first of all, if you ask me, there's a whole lot of Jewish people out there that don't realize they're Jewish. I don't care. You need to give it up. First of all, Israel was a nothing little shit country that went away. It was conquered. It was conquered. The royal line died. Everybody else that's trying to pretend like they're connected is a pretender. They're posers. The tribes that are in control are the ones that had no connection to the damn temple whatsoever. Sure, there was another temple built in the northern part of Israel, the Israel Empire. But the other guys, they don't even want to admit it. The bottom line is that much the same way the Rothschilds took over the gold, they basically took over the money by short-selling Britain, short-selling the UK after Waterloo. It's the same thing was tolerated. Hundreds and hundreds of years was tolerated. The Civil War, all these wars, World War I, World War II, the wholesale slaughter and genocide that supposedly happened or did happen in World War II. The side that won were the perpetrators, not the victims. Sure, they killed a lot of their own people just to make sure that they could wear this victim thing, but they weren't. They weren't even Jews. They were Phoenicians. So either you're going to have to reject it all, or you're going to have to own it and suffer when this shit goes down, because this time around it's going to be a lot worse. And it doesn't matter how much money they have. They can buy the politicians. They can pass all kinds of laws that make everything we do illegal, but it doesn't matter, because the enemy is Satan. The enemy is not your friend. The enemy wants you dead. And there is no benefit. There is nothing righteous to behaving and complying with the enemy. So yeah, that's a call to war. And I'll tell you, if there's anything that I want to try to impress on you people tonight, and that is call out the fucking Skirball Center, because, maybe the Getty, with its billions of dollars and its armies of attorneys and its priceless art that needs to be protected by an army with machine guns, maybe they're not the easiest thing to penetrate. Maybe they are the way to get in there. But 3 miles away, as the crow flies, is the Skirball Center, which is a Jewish cultural center. What if I say they have a basement that is directly connected to the Getty? Somebody can drive a car from the Getty to the Skirball Center and back and forth. Tell me I'm wrong. Sue me. Say I'm anti-Semitic for saying this. Say I'm crazy. Lock me up. It's the truth. And it wasn't just that one psychic that told us about the Skirball Center, because, since then we have armies of these psychics. Lots of them. I call them Jedi. But when Roger Stone tried to take down my QAnon group, and we bitch slapped him and traced it back to a satanic compound in Encino, we went down on that with all our force and all our psychic warriors. And we get a lot of information, and we saw a lot of things, and we got a lot of fun reports. It wasn't just his house, it was the house next door, and that's where we found the tunnel entrance going directly to the Skirball Center, where somebody could drive in the garage, push a button, open a wall, and drive down to a tunnel underground big enough for a car. So it's not like we haven't seen this a couple times. I don't know if you think that sounds like it's made up, whatever, but it doesn't matter. Because if they want to sue me for saying this, and I can say, the largest Jewish cultural center is connected to underground bunkers where child sex slaves are murdered and killed to the tune of at least 100,000 a year. Now, tell me that's anti-Semitic. Tell me it's illegal. Put me in jail for that. Or do some investigation now. It doesn't matter anymore because these guys are Nazis and they're going to do whatever they want, and our justice system has become a complete joke. I saw a clip from, what was it, a court in Minnesota, and the entire staff, legal staff, was up there, the judge, the bailiff, the recorder, a bunch of other whatever legal employees, and they were all dancing around, twerking and shit. And I'm thinking, the judge has got her robes split, she's got her cleavage all over the place, and it turns out she's wearing leather pants and all this shit. I'm like, really? This is the quality of our judicial system? It's a joke. The government is a joke. You can't fix it. It's just like you can't expect Trump to fix anything. To this day, I still have people asking me, what? What? You mean to tell me that the white hats are not rescuing children and these places are not cleaned out and yada, yada, yada? Let me see. Do we still have chemtrails? Yes. Has anybody taken responsibility for the COVID stuff yet? No. It's pretty bad, people. Now, why is the pedophilia so rampant? Because the damn Phoenicians who are trying to make this acceptable. Because that's their business. That's what they do. Anyway, I know I haven't gone a whole long time, but the thing is that I'm over being nice. There's no sense to being nice. If you are connected to this tribe, this false tribe, you need to walk away from it, because all these thousands of years that it's been hijacked, run, whatever, everybody likes to be an exclusive club where you're the chosen one and all that bullshit. Well, it's not going to happen anymore. It doesn't matter how much money has been stolen. It doesn't matter how much incentive all that money can provide. It's not going to turn out well. The first clue you should be watching is the fact that, A, the United States is fucked. It can't fight a war. It certainly can't fight China. It certainly can't fight Russia. It can't even fight Iran. And all three of those countries are going to hit us all at once. It's, oh yeah, don't forget North Korea. Yep. It's going to get ugly, and they're going to try to take us all down with them. And I'm really over it. And I think that, again, the best thing to do is shut it down with Occupy the Getty. And I think, of course, if we focus on this Skirball Center right now, we're going to be taking advantage of the extremely volatile, polarizing propaganda that's circulating out there. But it doesn't matter, because this is our opportunity to get this information spread. Anyway. All right, I don't really want to dwell on that too much. I'm really angry about the whole thing, to be honest with you. And I know a lot of people, Jewish and otherwise, that are what I would consider good people and all that. But at the same time, you got to let it go. You got to walk away. All right? And at the very most part, you got to help. Because it's just like the victims, the victims of pedophilia and all that. So often these victims, they focus on themselves. They want to talk about what they went through. They want to get all the attention, but they're not doing anything to stop it from happening to somebody else. It's the same damn thing. So the ugliness that I'm seeing out there in the world right now, and the stupidity, especially with the Christians, it's ignorance and retardation. So the only thing that's going to save us, of course, again, is the Occupy the Getty mission, because it will expose everything, and we don't have to argue about who's an anti-Semite and who's anti-Phoenician and who's a Nazi and who's a Zionist and all this bullshit that they created, these bullshit labels that they all created. We open it up, and you can call that vermin down there whatever you want. And we're even willing to take it back into the human family and forgive it if we can make it stop forever. That's it. All right, again, I know nobody wants to listen to a full hour of this show. You guys barely listen to the first 4 minutes. I'll tell you a couple things, though, real quick. First of all, I'm going to, do my quick commercial and ask for money. If you are able to help me out, I'm trying to build a little bit of war chest, because I'm going to probably go to another event here in 6 months, I think it is, in Las Vegas. But my PayPal is StephenKelly714 @yahoo.com, and you guys say friend or family, and thank you everybody that's donated the last whatever it was, week or so. The two people, I think two people did. Anyway, chocolates. Let me see. What is that? Zoe chocolate. You know who I'm talking about. I swear this guy's got a chocolate store, I think. and he'll send me a donation. But it's like one time it was right after, what was it, Valentine's Day or something, and then the other time was right after Easter, and I'm thinking, wow, you must have sold a lot of chocolates, huh? Way to go. Anyway, I appreciate every little bit. Also, a lot of people have pointed out that I should be growing really fast on Twitter, and I agree. I'm up to 14,400. I'll probably hit 14,500 pretty quick. But yeah, I'm censored. I'm shadow banned. I've got the evil Elon, the wannabe. On the surface, he looks really good, but he's not. Come on, guys. We have no freedom of speech. They're going to make anti-Semitism. What the fuck is anti-Semitism? It's going to be whatever they want. We have that over our heads. Hell, if anything, they're going to use it to force Twitter or whatever it is to remove that stuff. So yeah, they're chipping away at our freedom of speech. And of course, Donald Trump, he started it when he sat back and let Congress basically demonize the QAnon movement. Fucking retarded. Anyway, people. So yeah, help me out if you can. And like I said, I am going to do a Vegas thing, and so I wouldn't ask you to come, but it's something for me to look forward to. And I'll tell you, for me, going over there, a place like that, and talking about the stuff I talk about, that's kind of like doing it in the enemy's backyard and daring them to come and get me. Anyway, let's see, what else do I want to tell you? Again, today is the anniversary of the Maidan massacre 10 years ago today, and I think that's significant. And I think that the Russians are very keen on remembering that event, and they're very keen on getting a hold of those people that were responsible. So if you're one of those little girls that are on film filling those Molotov bottles, they're probably going to get you. If you live in Ukraine and you've got swastika tattoos, you probably want to get that fixed while you still got a chance. Well, I could also remind you, though, that France, various countries, they are still threatening to send personnel into there, and obviously this is designed to get American boots on the ground, which is a joke. I'm talking about AIPAC and how one of the biggest issues with AIPAC is that they're not even, it's not an American organization. They work basically to collect money and lobby on the behalf of a foreign government. Now, of course, they are exempt from certain laws. The government has a law. What's it called? It's called the Foreign Agents Registration Act, the FORA, F-A-R-A Act, Foreign Agents Registration. Israel, of course, is exempt from this. Now, anybody else would have to do this, especially the United States. Now, what's interesting is that the hypocrisy of America, and in a country like, for instance, Georgia, which is an old Soviet satellite, but it's a very important country to us because this is where they developed the microphage therapy, which is what we call the mRNA vaccine. They want this country in our pocket. They want to make it a member of NATO and the European Union, all this good stuff. This is a completely Russian country. Now, over there, there's a law being passed in the government that basically is enacting a law very similar to the Foreign Agent Registration Act, the American FORA law. And there's massive, massive demonstrations in the street of people against this law. Now, who in the hell is going to demonstrate in the street against a Foreign Agent Registration Act type law? It's insane. And these people are marching around with EU flags, the blue flag with a little ring of stars. This is anti that country. But the problem is now why would these people care? Because of course they're being funded by American companies, American NGOs, international NGOs that are forcing propaganda, trying to instigate a color revolution, trying to create another Maidan, just like they did over there. Same thing they do here, only they do this all over the country. You see somebody from the American State Department show up in your country, watch out, because they're trying to overthrow your country. They're going to set up a color revolution. Well, anyway, pretty crazy, right? Now, of course, the American media will tell you that this law that they're trying to enact is very Stalinist, kind of something Putin would do, a Nazi type thing. But no, it's almost exactly the same thing, word for word, as what America has here, the FORA Act, the same one that Israel is not obliged to follow. And so that way now we have an agency like AIPAC funding millions and millions of dollars to every single member of Congress and judges and everywhere, all over the place. And they don't have to report. Those people that take that money don't have to report where it came from. And the AIPAC itself doesn't have to report where its money comes from, whether it comes from Israel, which is money that we give Israel. Billions and billions of dollars goes into funding these organizations that go into altering and controlling our government from the outside. And of course, even though we have laws in place to fight this, Israel is above the law. They follow no law. Kind of like the way Netanyahu tells the International Criminal Court, fuck you. If you try to try us for war crimes, we're going to commit even bigger war crimes. Seriously, this is a little tiny shit country that was based on the bullshit mythological history of another little tiny shit country run by a bunch of pedophiles and baby killers. That's the truth. Now, I'll tell you something else about these pedophiles and baby killers. They make a big deal out of the temple, which of course was in southern Israel, not the northern part where all these troublemakers are. But what was the temple? First of all, it wasn't even that big of a building. It wasn't even that spectacular. It was relatively small. It was like 40 by 80 feet. Okay? But it had one purpose. Thick walls. Double thick walls. For what? For housing the Ark of the Covenant. Now, according to the myth, the Ark of the Covenant, of course, was how God communicated to his people. We know the truth. The truth is this damn thing came from aliens, and it was a property of the Egyptians long before these people from Goshen decided to cruise down and steal it. Well, the point is when you think about that, these silly Christians out there that worship this crap, that think that this is somehow connected to Jesus, think about this for a second. This temple these guys want to rebuild was nothing more than a housing for a ark that was made by aliens that these people thought was connected to God. Now, so you have to, first of all, you have to think about that for a second, because do you believe that? Do you believe that God was talking to these people through the ark? Do you believe that they made the ark out in the desert? Do you believe the ark parted the Red Sea? Here's the thing about Christians. They don't pay attention to the details. They say, well, whatever, okay, they believe that, okay, fine, that was whatever. You don't read. You miss the part where it says that Abraham was a pimp and his wife was a whore. You gloss over that. Anyway, I'm kind of over it. And I think that we're in for a lot harder times. We're in for a lot more, let's just say, trouble from the enemy. And I think it's time that we step it up because, again, the only thing they can't talk about is the Getty. All right? Well, not only are we going to talk about the Getty now, we're going to talk about the Skirball Center because, damn it, from day one that I knew about that bunker, I knew it was connected to the Skirball Center. So it's time we make that connection rock solid and extremely public. Why is the largest Jewish cultural center in the United States connected to a pedophile bunker? Why is it one of the main structures connected to a pedophile bunker? Let them deny it. Let them say it's not true. I think it's a lot easier to go inspect their basement than it is the basement of the Getty. So let's put some heat on the Skirball Center and thereby put some heat on the largest Jewish cultural center and thereby put some heat on the enemy and help end the war in Gaza. All right? If only we could have these college students all over the country saying Occupy the Getty. Amazing. Imagine how fast we'd end this. Anyway, guys, I want to thank you all for your help, because without you, none of this would be happening. So please share the show. Sorry for the diatribe. I want to welcome everybody that is here real quick. I know some of you, the Germans, I mean, you guys over there in Germany, you get in trouble for spreading this stuff. Yep, most of the people here are UK. That's because of the UK server. Anyway, again, there's a decent amount of you here, so I want to thank you for coming back. And people keep asking me, how can I help? What can I do? Spread these videos. Spread everything. Spread it, spread it, spread it. Getty, Getty, Getty. Go nuts with this stuff. Make sure everybody knows. 100 monkeys, okay? Wildfire. Spread the fire. Help me out. All right? Hopefully I'll see you guys next week. I want to, again, tell you to join me on Twitter. Stephen D. Kelly for President 2024, whatever. Stephen D. Kelly 24. Find me on X. The Telegram group, of course, is extremely important. If you're serious about this stuff, you need to get in the Telegram group, because that's where you're going to meet people that can help you learn how to be more effective, a warrior. Okay? Again, if you want my book, if you don't have it, if you want to talk to me, if you want to learn about being a Jedi, you want healing for somebody else, you need to email me at law17gun@aol.com. That's law17gun. I'm going to be doing a Spaces event here with the Isaac Cappy guy very soon on Twitter. I hope you guys will tune in for that. And just keep spreading the memes, okay? Make the memes, spread the memes, gain people, work hard, be a maniac. So all you maniacs that are working hard, thank you so much. You're all going to heaven. I'm serious. All right, guys. I'll see you next week, okay? I'll see you in the group. I'll talk to you soon. Once again, my name is Stephen D. Kelly, and this is the Stephen D. Kelly Show, and this is Truth Cat Radio, www.truthcatradio.com. Okay? So, good night. God bless. Adios, and goodbye.